Hi, I'm Mike Ignatoski, the creator of the PurpleWolf basketball spreadsheet, the spreadsheet that aims to help you get more enjoyment out of your tabletop basketball projects by doing a lot of the work, if not all the work, of tracking your team and players' game stats and season stats, as well as team standings and schedules. By doing that, you'll get more time to play your games, have more fun, and maybe take on projects that you wouldn't otherwise take on. In this PurpleWolf video, I'm going to review or demonstrate step by step how to create a historical league season. That's a type of league in the spreadsheet. I know it sounds a little redundant with a historical league season league, but that's the best I can come up with. It's kind of abbreviated HLS, and examples of this would be really just a league and a year. So I have examples of a 2016 NBA, 89 NBA, or 1975 ABA. But those are all examples of historical league seasons. And what that means is it'll bring in all the rosters, all the teams, and the schedules for all the teams for that particular season in that particular league. So let's see how to do it. Okay, so I just opened up a fresh, clean copy of the PurpleWolf spreadsheet. This is what it should look like. It should show you this welcome screen with these big buttons. And we're going to choose the green one because we want to create a PurpleWolf league. So we'll do that. It will activate the league help sheet, which is what we're on now, and show me this message about the different kinds of league and stuff. So I'm going to close that because we're going to follow the instructions here. You see here the historical team season and league season side by side have a lot in common. So the instructions are the same a lot of the time. And over here, the custom league, that's kind of got its own path. But we're going to focus here on the HLS, the league season. And step one is just get a new copy of the spreadsheet. 2 is you need to download the PurpleWolf basketball reference data spreadsheet from the Facebook group. And the name of it will look something like this. It might not be a 1 here, it might be a larger number, but the point is it'll PWB ball ref, which stands for PurpleWolf basketball reference data. And in that is all the historical data that we're going to use when we create our league. Step 3 says go to the league sheet, and that's what we're going to do. I'll look ahead a little bit here. Number 4, it says to reset all league data. That's really kind of just cleaning everything out, but ours is already clean, so we don't have to do that. It's basically the same as that. Now it's called delete, actually. And then it says to open up the basketballreference.com data file. So I don't have that open yet, and I'm not going to open it yet because I want to show you first what happens if you don't have it open. So let's go to, like it says for number 3, go to the league sheet. So here we are on the league sheet. Before I'll start, I'll kind of look at some of these things here. Which is any cell with a red triangle has a little pop-up note or comment that can be helpful. So feel free to explore with those. But we're going to follow the instructions here where it says start here, select the league mode. So which mode do we want it to operate in? So we'll click here. Then we get this little drop-down arrow. And we're going to pick the HLS for historical league season. And when I do that, it immediately gives me another message that says enter the season or the year in the yellow year cell. Okay, so here's the HTS HLS year. And it gives us a little info box here saying put a 4-digit year in. And it also kind of it does explain how the years are treated in the PurpleWolf spreadsheet. In PurpleWolf, there are no 85, 86, or 72, 73 seasons. There's just one year. And the year in PurpleWolf is the year the season ended, not started. So if we say 1989, that's going to be what you typically refer to as the 88-89 NBA season. So in our example, we're going to do 2016, which should be near and dear to those Cleveland fans. So let's do that. And when we do that, we get another pop-up message. It says that the PurpleWolf Basketball Reference Excel workbook not found. Please open it up. Basically so they can get to the data. And it tells you what the name of it is, which we already kind of knew. And it's going to abort this operation because it can't do anything else because it can't find the data. So that's what will happen if you don't have the file, the kind of basketball reference helper file open. So now I'm going to open that file. It has a few tabs. I'm going to actually go to the first tab. It should look like this when you open it up. And this is really just an acknowledgement to the sports reference company, and one of their sites being basketballreference.com, that provides the data that this spreadsheet uses free of charge, and it's much appreciated. Just kind of for your information, because you really don't need to change, look at, or do anything with this, although you're welcome to look at it. But there are 3 tabs down here at the bottom, and they all start with BBR, which stands for Basketball Reference. If we look at the Your Team, what that has is just the historical seasons and teams, starting with 1950 with the famous Anderson Packers, all the way up through, at the time of this video, would be the 2025. So it's got all the teams, and also you can see it indicates if they're in a conference, which conference, what division, and that's kind of how it knows how to put the standings together. So that's what this year team includes. The BBR roster, like you'd guess, that has all the rosters. And a couple things I'll point out on these rosters. If you look at these last few columns, there's this position, which is the position as defined by Basketball Reference. And you can see here in the 50 and 51, there's a lot of X's in that, because on the league roster or league listing of players, they don't provide that position. Although if you look up the individual player, it'll give a position. So that's a little frustrating, but that's only for, I believe, years. Well, 50 and 51 are the only places where that's a problem. There were several in the 50s, but I looked those up and filled them in, so you'll see some other simpler positions that I put in myself. But anyway, so in addition to having those positions, it indicates guys that played for more than one team. You'll see that here. But the maybe most important thing in this file is this MPG, which stands for minutes per game. And it wasn't a stat that was kept in 1950 or I think 51. But starting in 52, that data is available. And this data then is computed using the minutes played as recorded by the basketballreference.com website. So that's a very convenient stat to have if you're going to create a league that's going to track minutes or try to follow these historical number of minutes that the guys played. So anyway, so that's what's in this tab, is this all the rosters, and then here, as you can guess, all the schedules. So those, in addition to having just the schedule, it has the results. So it'll tell you what the final score of all the games were. So that, again, that's just kind of FYI. Thanks to Basketball Reference for that. And I will now just minimize this sheet because we don't really need to look at it. This needs to be open so that the PurpleWolf spreadsheet can access it. So let's minimize that, and let's get back to the PurpleWolf spreadsheet. Okay, let's get back to where we were before with our year. We'll click that year box and type in 2016. And now you'll see it magically provides all the teams from NBA 2016. And it also gives us a message. It tells us to click the big purple button to load the basketball reference data for this season. I'm going to click OK here. But before I do that, I'm going to point out a few things. So there's several things that it kind of extracts from that other spreadsheet. And you can see here in one, it found 30 teams. There are 2 sub-leagues or conferences. Each conference has 3 divisions. Over here, you can see the names of these conferences and the names of these divisions right here. And here, in addition to the team name, the team ID in this division column, you'll see it has either an L or R and then a number. And what that equates to is if you look over here, the conferences are either L or R, and that really just has to do with when you see the standings, whether that's on the left or the right. The PurpleWolf spreadsheet kind of breaks a little bit with some tradition, but I'm kind of a geo guy, and so I put the west on the left and the east on the right, like when you look at a map. So these divisions and L divisions go with the L Conference, which is the Western Conference, and the R divisions are in the R Conference, which is the Eastern Conference. So you don't have to worry about assigning any of that stuff. It's all here, but I just want to kind of point out what it extracts from that basketball reference data spreadsheet. So now we'll do what it said and click this big purple button. So I'll click it. It gives me a little warning that says this could take a minute or two. Be patient and cross your fingers. I feel pretty confident, but you can cross your fingers anyway. So you click that. What it's basically looking at is now is giving the rosters, the schedules, and it's going to extract the minutes played and those positions and etc. But with the newer seasons, there's a decent amount of data. And hopefully you'll see this message that says success, that the historical data has been populated into the league sheet, which we've already seen, the MPL, which stands for the master player list, and as well as the rosters and the sched, which is the schedule. This rosters and master player lists are almost identical, except the master player list it has a unique list of the players, whereas the roster sheet, if a player played for multiple teams, that player will be listed on each team, whereas the master player list only shows the first team that they played with. And that's just so it kind of knows that you have an easy way to find the unique list of players in the league. So it tells us we can take a look at those and make sure that there's something on it. But when we're ready, the next step is to click the black Validate League Settings button on this league sheet, which is right here. And that will guide us through the remaining steps to configure our league. So I'll click OK, and we'll just take a quick peek at the schedule down here. And the first thing I'll point out is up here where it says there's 1,230 games scheduled. And you can see here, it kind of creates a game ID of the game number, which is the season game number over here. And then it also shows the teams that are playing. And over here on the historical score column is just that, the actual score of the game. So that looks good. And if we look at the rosters, you'll see here are all the rosters, the teams, the players, and here's their minutes per game. This stint really just shows if they played for more than one team, is this the first team or second team that they played for. So you could see here for Chris Humphreys has 3 because Atlanta was the third team he played for that year. That's why it shows a 3. You don't really need to worry about it, but that's just what it means. In that MPL, then we'll tell you there are 476 different players in the league this year. So that looks good to me. Let's go back to the league sheet, like it said, and click this black button. And I'll do that, and it tells me that there's an error and there's an invalid league ID. So I gotta put an ID from 2 to 10 characters. So that's really just pointing to these 2 fields that I can see I need to do. I can fill in the league button or the ID, but I'm going to fill both of these in because that's what it's going to ask about. So this will be our 2016 replay. That's the name of our league. And for the ID, it can only be up to 10 characters, and it's basically all behind the scenes. So I'll just call it that. Now I'll click this black button again. While it's doing this, I'll also point out that you can see here, well, didn't have enough time. But hopefully you'll get this message that says, great news, your standings have been set up for your league. And it's kind of giving you a chance, although it could happen at any time, but really it's saying is, if you want to change it, you can go back to your league and basically start over if you want to. Well, I don't want to, but it's telling you could if you needed to, if you notice something wrong in your standings. This is more likely if you're doing a custom league and you didn't get your division set up right or something like that. But for historical leagues, the standings are pretty much a done deal. But this looks good. You can see that the West is on the left. That's the L. The Eastern's on the right. That's the R. I click OK. Now it pushes me back to the league sheet, and it gives me this nice success message that my league looks good. And the next step is to lock my league settings. So on this message box where it talks about locking your league, what that really means is just kind of freezing the main league setting or configuration, which means you can't add any teams, you can't change the name of any teams, you can't change the ID of any teams or players, and you can't remove any players from the league, or you can't change a team's division or conference like that. You are allowed to change the team colors, which is where you'd set those in here. You can change those actually anytime you want to. And you can go to the rosters. You could change a player's position if you wanted to. But other than that, you generally don't need to worry about this for historical leagues. So in this message, we can pretty much say, yeah, this all looks good to me. You know, I'm ready to lock my league settings. So I'll click yes. It says I'm almost done. After you click OK, it'll tweak your score sheet so it'll operate in the proper league mode. This will allow you to track your stats. Great. So I'll click OK. Now it's setting the score sheet to league play. You can see up here where it says League HLS. Now when you open up, when you download it for the first time, it doesn't have this. It has like a question mark, league. So now it's activated league play, and I could click the game ID to load lineups if I had them ready. Thanks. So now it's giving me a little, not warning, but it's advising me on a couple things. One is with the as played schedule that is provided by PurpleWolf, it tells you what teams are playing, but it does not provide game lineups. So, and that the main reason is that they're not conveniently available for the whole season at once. You know, yeah, I can go to Basketball Reference and look at one game and see who played, but I'm not doing that one at a time for all the games. So if they had a place to get it for all games, that'd be convenient, but I haven't seen that. So anyway, that's not that big of a deal. But so what that means is you'll need to create a default starting lineup for your teams, but you can always change that before you start the game. So this is just saying you can go to the LG lineup sheet to set up your default lineups. So I'm going to click OK. And that is basically it. It's pretty much, a few clicks and watch the spreadsheet do its stuff. And that's how easy it is to set up your historical league season as far as the basics. Before you start playing your games, there are various spreadsheet settings that I'd highly recommend you take a look at and get them set up the way you want to. So we'll talk about those next. But before I jump to the settings, there's one more thing I want to mention about the historical league, which is if on the rosters, excuse me, again, you'll referring to the guys that played for multiple teams, that again, they're on all the teams that they played for. So for Chris Humphreys, he'll be on Washington, Phoenix, and Atlanta. So that is, and there's no real, transaction data in this at all. So it's up to you as the user to know when you want to play Chris Humphreys, for Washington or Phoenix or Atlanta. That's going to be up to you. And it's how you want to configure your lineups, and it doesn't really matter to the spreadsheet, is what I'm trying to say. But one thing it does in here show for Kyle Humphreys is it'll have on the rosters, like Atlanta, his minutes per game is 14. But let me see if I can just, if I say look for Chris Humphreys. Here his minutes per game for Phoenix is 18. And his minutes per game for Washington was 17. So the point I'm trying to make here is that for guys that played for multiple teams, their minutes per game is calculated just on the data for that team. So that could be different. You can do whatever you want with that, but just wanted to make you aware of that. The two things of those players are on the rosters for all the teams, so it's up to you to know when you want to play them for those given teams. But the minutes per game is specific to each team that they played for. Okay, so you got a league created in PurpleWolf. So what do you need to do now before you start playing games? I suggest there's a few settings you want to look at before you get going on the gameplay. And they're located in a few different places. I have listed here the options sheet, there's the config sheet, the league sheet, and then the lineups sheet. So let's take a look at those. On the config sheet, which is this, there's a few things you can look at. And these are at the bottom of the config sheet. Above this, there are some other stat settings you can set, but those aren't as important to set before you start playing. Right here, this maximum number of bench players, as shown here, that's important to set before you do your lineups. That's an important number to set, which determines what's the maximum number of players you're going to allow on your bench. The spreadsheet will allow up to 10. I don't know if NBA has official rules, but typically it seems like they have 7 or 8, but you can decide how you want to set that up for your league. And these other two below it have to do with if you're tracking minutes played. It's important that these are correct. I believe 12 and 5 are the current NBA values. Maybe that's what they've always been, but either way, make sure they're the way you want them to be. Over here are some, I'll say maybe less critical, but still things you want to get set right. And they all have to do with fouls, both in determining the bonus for regulation and overtime, as well as personal fouls for foul trouble and players fouling out. So that's something you'll should take a look at on the config sheet. There's several other things on the options sheet, and I'll point out especially numbers 4, 7, and 8, with 4 being basically, are you going to use minutes played? Are you going to track this as validate? Maybe I think it will say track and validate maybe on the new version, but that's important. If you're going to track those minutes played values, then you need to set this option to on, number 4. The other 2, 7, and 8 have to do with the event logger, and they have basically those are saying if you're going to credit somebody, with a blocked shot, then do you want it to force you to identify the opponent that will get a missed field goal? And similarly, if you're going to give somebody credit for a steal, do you want the spreadsheet to force you to identify the opponent that should be docked with a turnover because that's who they stole the ball from? There are other settings on this options sheet. Some have to do with just whether it shows you alerts at certain situations and things, and those are good to look over, set, and those are other things where you could also set them as you go. Maybe you want to try it one way or try it a different way. Not to say you can't change these number 4, 7, and 8 during your league season, but I would recommend it's best not to, but that's up to you. On the league sheet, that's where you configure your team colors that are mostly used on the score sheet. Obviously, those don't affect any stats or results, but they make things look cool. In the future, I'm hoping to add the ability here to just set a home arena for each team, but that will also be another option, but it's not available in the initial version. Lastly is on the league or on the lineup sheet. This is actually the lineup editor that you can launch from the league lineup sheet. But the important thing I'm pointing out here is this bench limit, which is enforced in the lineup editor. It comes from the config sheet, and that's where the maximum number of players on your bench comes from. So you want to first set it on your config sheet before you do your lineups. And in general, the way the PurpleWolf deals with the rosters is, you have on your lineup, you have the 5 starters, who's on your bench, and then basically who's left over here on the roster that's not a starter or on the bench is considered effectively a did not dress player. So they're still on the roster, but if they're not listed in the starter or bench when you start your game, you won't be able to put them in the game. So it's important to know what your default lineup is. And I should also mention again that when you load a lineup into the score sheet, you can change who's on your bench. You can change your lineup before you start the game. But once you start it, you can't change it. So those are the things I wanted to cover as far as settings before you get going playing your league games. That wraps up this PurpleWolf basketball spreadsheet video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to box out.